Kirk Manzo is a best-selling author who holds the designation of Certified Speaking Professional with the National Speakers Association. He has more than 25 years of sales and sales management experience and has dedicated himself to constantly growing his understanding of human behavior. In 1997, Kirk began his automotive career with AutoNation in Miami, where he led a sales team that achieved the highest profitability per car in the organization. He was asked to become an instructor for AutoNation University, where he helped open new stores as well as manage the integration of recently acquired dealership groups. In 2002, Kirk became an independent trainer and consultant with a nationally recognized automotive training company where he excelled at developing dealership sales teams. In less than 2 years, he was promoted to Director of Training and Consulting. Kirk Manzo regularly presents workshops at industry conferences and is a frequent contributor to publications like CBT News. As a certified member of the John Maxwell team, Kirk can bring the most comprehensive leadership development programs to your dealership. Kirk's bilingual skills make him invaluable to all of his dealership clients in Puerto Rico and throughout Latin America. Y todos los programas son disponibles en español.
You look like you're a little off your game this morning. See, that's our responsibility. Not to, I got to get my report to Aaron. I got to get my report to Randy. I got to get my report to Elaine. Yeah, you do. But that's only part of your job. The bigger part of your job is the fact that the people that work with you have direct contact with your consumers. And that if they're in good shape, the experience is going to be positive for the customer. And so that's something that, there's this misconception that, oh, when I'm in charge, I get to do things my way. Really? Have you noticed that everybody's watching you? All of a sudden, you thought you'd have all this freedom, and really, you're under the spotlight, kind of like I am now, behind these lights, all right? So what you have to understand is that there's a lot of visibility to leadership. It's the nature of the beast. My recommendation to you is consider something inexpensive, easy to implement. Use the Gallup Strength Finders tool. It's not real complicated. It'll identify the person's top 5 strengths. One of the things you'll find throughout our theme today, and something that John talks about and something I personally believe in, is you have to accept the fact that we all have weaknesses and strengths. If you don't believe me, my wife's sitting back there in the white sweater. You can ask her at the end of the program. Now, when we think about our industry, there's been this culture of what I call command and control. This idea that you have to do it my way. Why, Bill? Because that's just the way it is. This is the way it needs to be done, and if you don't do it this way, we're going to have a conversation. And for years and years and years, and as Aaron said, I've been in the business for almost 20 years, I've seen where this has become the dominant model that we use. Would it be fair to say that we may need to evolve? We need to look at a different model. What I'd like to suggest to you is perhaps the model isn't one of command and control, rather it's one of collaboration. It's this idea that everyone has something to bring to the party. So trying to get people to do things not because they have to or else, but rather because they want to. I'm curious, by a show of hands, how many of you are currently at full staff? That every department, you have no openings in your operation currently. Okay, so I got one guy up front, too, so very few. Congratulations, all right? Now, would it be fair to say that there are some players you wouldn't mind upgrading if you had a better option, but nonetheless you're at full staff, so let's be candid with ourselves, right? Not just, okay, well, they are breathing, and we can hire them, all right? The idea would be this: use the rule of threes. The rule of threes is very simple to understand, remember, and apply. First, do 3 interviews. Not 1, not 2, do 3 interviews for every position before you hire the person, before you make the offer. Okay, that's not too hard, I can do that. All right, now it gets harder, we put more weight on the board. It's got to be 3 different managers. Okay, why? Because people have different perspectives. Each of us has our own filter. You want to make sure you get different perspectives for the candidate, good, bad, and indifferent. Oh, Kirk, I can do that. I can do 3 interviews in 3 days, because I'll just have them show up and I'll have them talk to the GM, then I'll talk to the GSM, then I'll talk to either one of the F&I guys or one of the sales guys, sales managers, and we'll hire them. Well, here's the problem. You got to do that over 3 days. In the North American marketplace, they say to win customers and a bigger share of the marketplace, companies must first win the hearts and the minds of their employees. How do you give a great customer experience? If an employee comes in and an employee's unhappy, there's this cloud sort of floating over their head, and they go to their desk and you see the cloud. You know the cloud I'm talking about. All of a sudden the phone rings. Borrow your phone here real quick. Ring. 911 Cochran, can I help you? Wow. Isn't that going to be a fabulous call for the person on the other end of that line? I cannot tell you how many organizations come to us and say, Kirk, we need you to kind of help us out. We need you to help us with our people. We're having some productivity issues. Can you come in and work with our team? If we could just find the right people. If we could just get these people to get with the program. Why don't we talk about your program first, Mr. Dealer, Mr. GM, and then we'll talk about your team. You see, because the change we're looking for in our team isn't the team. The change we're looking for in our team needs to start where? It starts here. I'm Kirk Manzo, president of the Manzo Group. Stop making your employees want to run away. People don't quit jobs. They quit bad bosses. Walk around with a hammer long enough and everyone starts to look like a nail. Retaining workforce talent today means a change in strategy. Gen X and Gen Y team members have very different expectations for their work lives than past boomers. Learn how to pull people up rather than push people around. Leadership, after all, is influence. Getting people to perform not because they have to or else, rather because they want to. As a certified member of the John Maxwell team, I can provide insights on how to best implement John's leadership principles back at your store. Overall, how do I know whether or not my team is engaged? Now, how many of you work in one of the showrooms? I know that, Ryan, you run the Mazda store. So how many of you work where you're in the retail space and you're open until 9 o'clock at night? How many of you? All right, so almost half of you. Okay. Here's the question I want you all to ask yourselves. And for those of you that don't work retail, we can adjust the numbers. If you're in the retail space, the question is, what is your team doing? What is Chuck doing at 8:45? Okay, you close at 9. What is he doing at 8:45? If you're in a department that closes at 6 o'clock, because you're an administrative department, what is your team member doing at 5:45? Are they trying to squeeze every last piece of productivity, John, out of today? Is that what they're doing 15 minutes before it's quote unquote quitting time? Or are they making the rounds, Joe, and they're talking to everybody? There's a possibility that I perceive this incorrectly. But let me share with you what I think and what I see. And I give you permission to tell me if you think I'm wrong. What if that's how you started your next performance meeting? What would be the reaction that you would get from the person that you were sharing this concern about? The mediocre teacher tells. The good teacher explains. The great teacher demonstrates. In my opinion, one of the most difficult jobs that a desk manager or sales manager has is knowing when to do what. When do I stay and I coach the salesperson to finish the sale and I tell you what to do from this position? And when do I have to get up and I have to go do it? You see, because I can tell you what to do and there's some value in that. I can explain to you why I want you to use these words, and that has value. But at times, if I cannot get up from here and physically show you how to do it, you may never learn it. Now, there's a flip side of that coin. If I get out of this seat too often, what happens? The other person becomes overly dependent. And the numbers are concerning. Only 30% of employees in the US marketplace are classified as actively engaged. 70% are actually disengaged. Either 55% are not engaged, 15% are so actively disengaged, they actually want you to fire them. Would it be fair to say that if we reduce the turnover rate, and we're not constantly having to teach them the basics only, Leslie, that they can actually deliver a better experience to the customer? Why? Because they actually, know how to do their job. Does that make any sense, Brian? So, at the end of the day, of course, it's about the green. Let's be candid, right? So, if we can reduce the rate of turnover by increasing the employee engagement, we can improve the customer experience, and yes, in the end, we'll make more money. One of the things I want you to think about is the current state or condition of your organization. Kirk, how am I going to do that? Let's keep it simple. If you've got 5s and 6s leaving your organization, and you're replacing them with 8s and 9s, you're going in the right direction. You're upgrading. If you've got 5s and 6s and you're replacing them with more 5s and 6s, great. You got a lot of motion, you're not making any progress. You're just spinning your wheels. However, and I've seen this in more than one dealership, if you are losing your 8s and 9s and you're replacing them with 5s and 6s, you're in trouble. Well, if they left, why did they leave? Maybe is this why? See, people don't quit jobs. They actually quit bosses. So one of the things that is the great opportunity and the great challenge is that the solution and the issue is probably us as we look in the mirror. Because we represent the reason that they may have chosen to stay, we also represent the reason why they chose to leave. I opened up today and started talking about this idea of what? Command and control, which has dominated our industry for years, versus what? Collaboration. And what I'm trying to suggest to you, this idea of the staffing issue that we're having, the connectivity that we need within the team, which then connects to the customer, this snapshot here hopefully gives you a roadmap of how you can start to move your team from the right side of the page to the left side of the page. Does that make any sense? All right, people can be taught leadership.